Today I'd like to give just a brief overview of Watergate and the investigation, an important one for journalism and one that was important for the country as well. So, Watergate is a general term used to describe a complex web of political scandals between 1972 and 1974. The word specifically refers to the Watergate Hotel and apartment complex in Washington, D.C. And on June 17, 1972, burglars broke into the Democratic Party's National Committee headquarters, and Frank Wills, the unsung hero, a security guard, found the burglars. And the burglars really had ties to high-level people in the Republican administration of Richard Nixon. And so what you have is, a whole variety of things that were going on in the background. So, it arose out of political events such as Vietnam, the publication of the Pentagon Papers about Vietnam in 1970. So we have 1972, the burglars were arrested. 1973, Nixon began his second term after a huge victory against George McGovern for the presidency. And then the next year, in 1974, Nixon resigned. So, some background on Richard Nixon, a fascinating character. In 1947, he was elected to the House of Representatives. He was the vice presidential candidate and vice president with Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1952 through 1960. He lost the presidential election to John F. Kennedy, and then later lost the governorship in California in 1962. And he's famously quoted as saying, "After that defeat, you'll never have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore," to the media. But he came back in 1968 and was elected president by a small margin against Hubert Humphrey, who was vice president under Lyndon Baines Johnson. The investigation, what you probably know as journalists, it involved Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, along with the mysterious informant Deep Throat, who in 2005 was found out to be Mark Felt of the FBI. And in February 1973, the U.S. Senate established a committee to investigate what had happened. The public hearings of the committee were sensational, including the evidence of John Dean, Nixon's former White House counsel. And during the testimony, it was found that there were secret White House tape recordings that essentially started a major political and legal battle between Congress and the president. In 1974, the House of Representatives authorized the Judiciary Committee to consider impeachment proceedings against Richard Nixon, and the committee voted to accept 3 of the 4 proposals for impeachment. And as you may recall, impeachment is the statement of the violations, and then the U.S. Senate hears the trial. And one key factor in all of this while it was going on is that the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Nixon to release White House tapes which revealed that Nixon had participated in the Watergate cover-up. Now, one thing that you will see from Joseph Campbell's analysis of this period is that we as journalists tend to see Woodward and Bernstein as the great leading lights to bringing down the presidency. Well, there were a lot of people involved, and Joe Campbell does a very good job at assessing what role the press played and what role it didn't in terms of the Watergate investigation. So that's what we have for today. Thanks very much, and we'll see you online.